Hello, Paula. Thank you
Hi,
so much
everybody.
for joining us. Great to have you here. I wanted to be really clear at the start of the video because I know it's a big issue for certification bodies and for us as consultants. But we are completely impartial. So we work with you guys, but we work with many other UCAS accredited bodies, and we don't really preference one over another, and really it's ultimately up to our clients to choose who they go with. So it's nice to have a chat, but there's still the impartiality there. I know that's the same for you guys, isn't it, Paul?
Absolutely. We work with obviously lots of different consultants and companies directly. So, this is more just of a chat to help everybody out there get more familiar with the process and the pros and cons and sort of what we're about, what you guys are about. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, Paula, could you introduce yourself and the cert body that you're from? That's probably a good place to start.
Yeah. So my name's Paula Brady. I am based in Northern Ireland and I am Chief Operating Officer for Auva Certification. Auva are a fairly new certification body. We're running just up on 3 years now, with our Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland branches really new in the last 6 months, so that we've really sort of set aside the resources and time for that. So at Auva, we're all about trying to change up the experience of companies coming for certification, what they expect, and sort of make it a much more customer service driven product that we're sort of delivering to our client base. So it's a little bit about Auva.
Excellent. No, thank you. And that's really interesting to me, that path to UCAS accreditation, because you mentioned about putting the resources into that. And the impression I get from cert bodies is that's quite an expensive process, as well as quite a time-intensive one.
Absolutely.
How have you found it?
Yeah, so I think what I'll start off with is that UCAS certification, I believe, is a must for any sort of credible certification body out there. It gives our client base confidence that we are being held to certain standards. And so nobody expects that to be easy for a certification body, and it's certainly not an easy process. It's time consuming. There's a huge amount of work involved. But we feel it's very, very worth it in the end, because we know that our systems and processes and the way we do things are the right way to do it, where we can bring value to our client base, but do it in a way that is sort of universal standard of delivering that service. So we feel that credibility from UCAS is worth, I suppose, the pain of going through it. It's a highly costly process as well. So for every code a certification body goes for, and for every standard, it's all additional audit time for us from a UCAS perspective. So they're out with us quite often. They also do what's called witness audits. So for auditors out delivering a service to a client, UCAS actually come out to check the auditor in their processes as well. And that happens 2 to 3 times a year. So it's very, very robust. It's very intensive, but we feel it's what you need as a certification body to keep on the right track. It brings value to the whole process. It brings value to the certificates that we can issue to our clients, in the fact that this isn't an easy thing, and it's not easy for the certification body to ensure they're meeting standards. And for the client base, their certificate holds a certain value then, to know that it's credibly given, not just a piece of paper.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as consultants on the other side of the table, almost, we always promote UCAS and the value of UCAS certification.
Yeah.
Because of all those reasons you've laid out, the real sort of, you know that someone's checking the checker. So you come in and audit our clients, but we know that you're going through the same thing,
Absolutely.
Which I think really adds value to it. I was quite interested in the witnessed audits, because we occasionally get that where we're asked, or our clients are asked to host UCAS, and that can be quite daunting. It's daunting enough already that you've got an ISO auditor coming in, but to have UCAS there as well. How have you found your clients have coped with that?
Yeah, I think if we're quite straight up with the clients and explaining the fact that yes, UCAS are going to be present, but it doesn't alter our service delivery at all to the client. So they will be receiving the same audit they would have had regardless if UCAS were there to check us. UCAS aren't interested at all in the client company. They're very, very much just interested in how we deliver that service and that we are doing it in the manner that meets our standards that we have to subscribe to and get accredited to. So I think it's just about reassurance that communication is key. You can't land this kind of audit on a client company and expect them to be, because, you know, it's daunting for them. That's what I have found in the fact that it's not only their auditor arriving, it's these third party who are, the last witness I was subject to was only a few months ago, and we actually did it remotely. So I was able to go to the client site to do the operational visit, but I had two UCAS auditors witnessing me on the end of a MS Teams meeting. And, you know, they were very much involved in the audit as well, in the fact that they were asking a lot of questions of me. And so the client had that experience, which is pretty unique, I think, and it's very much linked to these times that we're in. But the audit worked so well from a UCAS perspective on us, and also just with the client. You know, it's all about the communication. I have seen in the past in other certification bodies I've worked for where they haven't brought the client into that communication process of explaining what was happening. And it's a very different atmosphere, and it's a very different audit because of that. Because obviously the client's wary about who these third party is coming into their business and looking at their documentation for confidentiality reasons and all of that, even though obviously confidentiality clauses exist right through the chain. So that's what we have come to understand. I have been doing this now 17 years. So it's quite a while. It's actually scary when you think about it. But and I've been UCAS witness quite a number of times. And as I say, what I have learned from that, bring the client on board, explain exactly who UCAS are interested in looking at and what the process entails, and you tend to get through it easily enough. As I say, the whole point of it is that our service as a certification body shouldn't change either way, witnessed or non-witnessed. That's important.
No, absolutely, I get that. I've been on a couple as a consultant where UCAS have been there as well. From my experience, they're very careful not to interfere. They're just there to observe and haven't really seen that it's affected the audit at all. And actually, whatever goes on between you as the cert body and them happens afterwards, away from the client normally. So it hasn't been a problem from what I've seen. So it's good.
Good.
But I mean, that brings us on, I guess, nicely to remote auditing, which has been the buzzword for over a year now. And actually, a lot of the certification bodies, probably all of them, I guess, have moved to this way of working with Teams or Zoom or whatever. Have you guys found that? And was that a new thing for you, or did you plan to do some stuff remotely?
Very much new, I think, to everybody in the industry. The only type of idea of a remote audit we would have seen beforehand was maybe a very simple ISO 9001 stage 1, where it was very documentation driven. But I think all auditors would agree it was much better always to get out on site, see your client, get a feel for who they are, so that you can tailor your stage 2 to very much be effective all round. So yeah, getting thrown, and we all were thrown into remote auditing last March, was quite an experience. But I have found that due to technology, due to companies sort of moving to a more paper-free environment, that it was, you know, much smoother than maybe it would have been 5 or 6 years ago. So yeah, Zoom, I had never heard of Zoom or been on it prior to March 2020. MS Teams, Google Meet, all of those suddenly became weekly terms about what meetings you had and you think. So I think everybody adapted really quickly and really well. But the remote audits, again, I think really come down to the effectiveness of them, really comes down to preparation. And funny, I've found that companies are nearly more prepared for their audits and from a remote sense than they would have been when you're coming on site, because when you come on site, they expect everything just to be there instead of having sort of prepared their management system documentation for ease of access. And so audits kind of ran very, very smoothly for us. which was great. Now, don't get me wrong, there are limitations to remote auditing from a health and safety and environmental perspective, specifically when you're looking at workshops or construction sites, for example, where really being able to get out and have a good look around and, sort of throw your auditor eye over things instead of being contained within a very specific screen where you're actually having to direct somebody to point the camera where you want to see. Yeah, I don't think anything will ever replace that fully. So what we have tended to do now as restrictions have eased in the last few months is do a mixed audit where the paperwork element of things, the interviews with, say, purchasing or contract management or, production planning is all done through electronic means, but actually getting out to do the health and safety, environmental, and even operational from a quality perspective out to the site or workshop or the place of where those more risky operations are going on. Because one, it's safer to do so because they're usually larger, fewer people about, and two, it really gives you a better perspective within the company. But it's tough to work within current restrictions. In Northern Ireland, we've been a little bit slower than England to drop a lot of the restrictions. So we're only really coming out of lockdown in the last few weeks. So and you have to deal with companies' own risk level analysis. So, it's some companies I have been out to audit have restricted visitors from March till currently because they see it as a risk of somebody coming into their organization who could potentially close them down. So you have to sort of take all of that on board and work with the company's own valuation of risk. But remote auditing has been more effective than you would imagine.
I think that's what we found as well. You make the point about being more organised because, as you say, when you go on site, everything and everyone to be there. When you're doing it remotely, you have to organise people's time to come in and out of the calls. So I find that clients are thinking ahead a bit more.
Interrupting. What we've been doing too is providing very detailed audit plans to our clients, much more so than you would have normally done with a full list of expected documentation. So that, for that preparation reason, it has really, really worked well. So we're going to have meetings here, here, and here, as you say, planning times. And this is the documentation we'd love to see. But obviously it's up to the company because everybody's system is individual and unique, but it gives them at least a prompt to think about, okay, well, we don't have that specific type of information, but we do have this that meets those requirements. So,
absolutely. The other thing I like about the Teams and the Zoom, mainly Teams, I think Zoom works slightly different, but you can share the screen and you can share documents and it all stays within the client's environment. So there's no sort of printing stuff off for the auditor or there's no need to email stuff across, like I guess some people do. If you want to, the client can keep it all within their boundary and the auditor is just witnessing and sampling the evidence like that.
Absolutely.
So
we've seen a variety of means. So the screen share goes right across all of those meeting templates. So Zoom, MS Teams, Google Meet, all of that facility for screen share, which we've seen a lot of. And Dropbox and, OneDrive and SharePoint, lots of other, obviously, documentation sharing platforms have been used as well to really effective where you can, again, companies feel comfortable doing a read-only, share with an auditor where they can just view the things, but obviously they can't impact it, input it, or change it in any way. And so, it's much better than providing hard copies or, things that are confidential in nature that you can just view and then you close out and then they remove access at the end of the audit. So it has worked, as you said, very effectively.
It has been good. And I think it's a real positive for the industry. Like we've already said, I think this is going to carry on after COVID in some form. Although I totally agree that you do need to go on site sometimes, particularly for safety and the environment. But also we do a lot of information security systems at Assent, and there's a physical security section for that one.
There is.
So even that one has the need to go on site. But whether that will be, as you seem to be doing, sort of part of the audit is remote, part of it on site, or whether that's sort of once every 3 years. I guess we'll find out. But in terms of your sort of hybrid audits at the moment, so that would be where there's sort of 4 or 5 days in the audit, and then you're mixing it up. What are you finding is the best way round? Is it best to go on site first and then remote, or the other way round, so you can plan it and then go on site and look at the evidence after?
Yeah, I usually try to base our site visits sort of mid-audit, so that you have time to see what the company have identified as their own risks, measures, monitoring, issues that they've had over the course of the 12 months, which kind of informs your visit from an operational perspective. And then you need the follow-up time after a site visit to follow up on everything you've seen, everyone you've seen, to kind of follow through with the documentation and records held, for example, in training or in equipment inspections, inspections and management of emergency procedures and fire alarms and all of those lovely things. Always in a 2 or 3 day audit, you would try to do it the end of day 1 or the start of day 2. And it really gives you the time either side to see. And that's not every auditor plans in that way, but usually the ones who work with us follow that similar format because it just makes sense in a way.